Ready for you guys.
We're rolling. Okay, we're here with Matt Bauman. It's pretty fun to always. We were just saying how you sit and talk with someone before the podcast actually starts, and you get all this good stuff. And once the podcast starts, you're like, "Oh, can you repeat what you just said?" And ironically, we were just talking about the power of not thinking, which most men are really good at. Not
There you
thinking,
go.
right?
Yeah.
So Matt, tell us. You just mentioned. Well, let me introduce you. Then we'll talk about the book Creative. But this is Matt. Matt is our fitness director. He has quite the life story. He's kind of what's risen above maybe his early circumstances in life. Stud of a man, accomplished a lot in athletics, and we'll have him maybe share some of those things. As a personal trainer, was ranked. He always says top 3, but number 2 in all of Southern California when he was doing his personal training thing there. By what was it, a magazine?
Reader's Digest.
Reader's Digest, yeah.
La Jolla.
So huge accomplishment there. That's really cool. He is the track coach here, and I can't understate how good of a track coach he is. First year team had to literally went out and bought javelins with his own money for the kids to do that, which my son was a recipient of, and just thrived. My son just loved it. But we were sitting there watching one of the track meets with the parents, and some of the parents were like almost in tears, truly, because Matt sits and runs alongside him as they're running, yells at him, gets him going, pulls him aside, big high fives. I had numerous parents come up and say, "Hey, does he do camps? We want our kids to be around him more." And so really good with kids. He's doing a couple high school basketball trainings coming up June 9th and just so much stuff. So we've asked him to take the reins of the gym, but we'll get to the gym fitness stuff. Matt apparently is learning how to not think.
Shutting it off. John Cleese, let us know.
Tell us about what on earth would we want to master not thinking for?
Yeah, I mean, going back to the book that I was just reading called Creative by John Cleese, super easy read if you guys want to check it out, but it just talks about the power of not thinking. There's so many times when you've had like a name or a song on the tip of your tongue, right? You just can't think of it. It's like, oh, why can't I think of it? And then you go about your daily life and you totally forget about thinking about it, and then boom, it shows up and it pops up. So the brain is wired to be more reflexive, right? So having that reflex response and just having the be here now moment and stop thinking about the past and stop thinking about the future. And when you do that, it allows you to tap into a lot more of what you already know, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you know what you already know. So, that pressure situation, that anxiety situation, they also talk about the reinvestment theory, which is really cool. Over cueing or over verbalizing certain movements in the gym or something like that can really stop us from performing at our best when it comes down to it.
Give me an example. What do you mean by that?
So say for example, a coach is cueing an athlete on specific movements. Move this way, do that. If you start to cue too much verbally, the athlete begins to internally verbalize those cues as well. And so now it comes to a situation in high pressure moments where that athlete is now doing the same thing and is no longer thinking about the game or the aspect of what's going on. So
too much in their own head.
Yeah, exactly. Choking comes to the word choking comes to mind, but just being too much in their head and not letting their capabilities shine and just being or letting practice take over.
Yeah, I've said that so many times as a basketball coach. I used to coach AAU basketball, and I've probably said, stop thinking, just play.
Yeah.
Just go out and play.
Yep.
Get that muscle memory going.
And so bringing it full circle, just stop thinking, right? And just get out of your head and let practice take over. And that's why we practice, right? To build that confidence, to build that competence in certain movements. And then that way when we're able to go out and perform, it's thoughtless in a sense.
Yeah. Is there a strategy to practicing that? Like how do you practice not thinking? How do you train yourself to know when to shut it down and just instinct take over?
Yeah, so a great way to deal with that is having a pre-game or pre-match ritual. So having something ready to where you can shut off. Obviously in practice there are moments where we do want to think, right? We want to be able to hone in our skill, practice, figure out what happened wrong, rewire and keep practicing until it becomes permanent. But then again, when it comes to match day or meet day or, game day, having that pre-game ritual where we are just completely shut off in the moment, and being able to focus on the task at hand.
It's interesting. I want to hear your pregame. Okay, what's your pre-match? I was a public speaker for a lot of years, went all over speaking, and I had a pre-stage moment that got me in this focused mindset of I'm about to go out and deliver this message. It hyped me up. It got the adrenaline going. And I think I've shared it on here before. What I would do, I would kind of take off this fake robe that was on me as if I was like a boxer
physical
coming
cue.
out. Right. Yep, the physical cue, the mental cue. And then I'd go out and speak to the group or whatever. So do you remember young Matt's pre-match routine? What was it?
Definitely. I always had a playlist queued up, something that would take me, out of any kind of self-doubt, any kind of, internal linguistics that were negative. So I just kind of tune into the music and tune everything else out, and then sticking to routines. Understanding that if I had consistent routines, I could have consistent behaviors, and with consistent behaviors becomes consistent results. So doing that, and then focusing internally, not focusing on my competition. No one, I didn't overestimate anybody and I didn't underestimate anybody. So everyone from lane 1 to lane 8 was the same to me. They were, one wasn't better than the other, one wasn't worse than me. They were all the same competition. So taking the focus away from my competitors and putting it back on me was a big one for my, pre-meet routine. And then just having a structured warm-up ready and in place, ready to go. And then from there, just moving into more of a, like you said, being in the moment type of feel.
Yeah.
Physical cue. My physical cue was always 3 taps on the chest and point to the sky. Lost my stepfather at 18, so I always wanted to give him a shout out right before the meet and just, hey, be with me type of thing, and look what we're doing, look where we're at, look at all this work we've put together in, and he obviously wasn't there at the time, but in spirit he was. So that was my physical cue, just let everything go and time to work.
That's cool. Yeah, men need to be a little bit better, more conscious at how the mindset and how focusing on you and your task at hand and not the competition around. Both the sports is the obvious one, right? But in life, your business and other things, it's really important. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing consistently, victories are going to happen for sure.
Yeah.
Right. All my most successful periods of time with real estate or business are when I was consistently doing the right things and just focusing on me and what I was doing. And not everybody else. So.
I agree, and I have a 28-day mindset course where the first week is just about building that mindfulness, understanding during your training, when was I at my best and when was I at my worst? Mm-hmm. What thoughts were surrounding those performances, right? So what I've found is most athletes who perform at their best are focused on themselves, their routine, their movement, their success, not the outcome, but I heard a cool saying. It's fear is what if, faith is even if. Mm-hmm. Having that even if mentality, right? We talked about it is you may not win the day, but if you can stay consistent, you'll win the whole war type of thing. So, failure is a part of success. I think that, if you dwell too much on the outcome, it'll deter you a lot from that, longevity of having success later on down the road.
Yeah. The business way of saying that, I've learned this lately, is we joke here a lot about yes and or no and, because usually it's yes but, no but, and we always say yes and. Like, your idea is great, yes, and let's not do your idea.
Yes, the verbiage
and,
a little bit.
but it's let's add to it. Let's change it up. So when in athletics or business where you have this roadblock, yes, there's the roadblock, and here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Not but, it's the negative side, but yes, and I'm going to conquer it.
Switching that. And then oftentimes I found that athletes that perform at their worst are constantly focused on other people, right? Their competitors, who's better, who's worse, who's top 3 in the state, who's, I'm going to go up against the guy that's last in state or that's in last place over the standings. I'm going to kick his butt. Yeah. And then you just have mental slips and mental errors, and you don't compete up to your own standards. You compete to the level of their standards, and you leave opportunities on the floor.
Yeah,
for sure. And then thinking about outcomes, right? And having that what if mentality oftentimes invokes fear, right? The fear is just the unknown, right? And that's what we kind of plan for. So switching that to even if, right? Even if this happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to move forward. There's another battle to be won.
Yeah, and I have always said to my basketball players, and this again, this crosses marriage, business, other areas too. If you want to gain confidence, you do two things: you're prepared, and you play aggressive.
Yeah.
And if you'll do those two things, confidence grows. And we often think it's the opposite. It's like, okay, well, when I get my confidence, then I'll play aggressive. When I get my confidence, then I'll go. It's if you're prepared, so you train really hard, you work really hard, kind of that Kobe Bryant mentality, right? He's going to shoot a million more shots than you are throughout his career, and which is why he's going to be better, not because, of any other reason, but he's going to out-train you. So he's more prepared. And then he plays super hard and aggressive and drives to the hole and whatever, which builds his confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's this chicken or the egg, what comes first? And I've always preached that mindset of if I can be really prepared, and then I'm aggressive at whatever I'm doing. But you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, if you've never played basketball before and it's the first time on the court, maybe pass a few times because you're not prepared.
Yeah, there you go. Preparation meets opportunity is, in my opinion, the definition of luck. So if you can be prepared, and like you said, I think that aggressive mentality comes from self-belief, right? If you believe wholeheartedly in yourself and the repetitions that you've done, that confidence, it can only build.
Yeah.
And then, not to say that Kobe Bryant never had doubt, right?
Oh, yeah,
I bet you every day he went in there, he doubted himself in some way. But having that mindfulness to understand that he's not his thoughts.
Yeah.
And to let some of those thoughts just pass, like, dismissively, like, non-judgmentally, like, oh, why did I think that? I'm such an idiot. No, let the thought just pass. It was just a thought. Something sparked it, let it go. If it doesn't serve you, right? If it serves you, if it's positive or meaningful, then run with it. But yeah,
maybe that's when you master the not thinking moment, right? Here's these thoughts. Let me just focus, get it all out.
Yeah, and the crazy part is people, I don't know if they shun it or if there's just this misconception of what it does, but meditation. Meditation and visualization are huge. As a matter of fact, a lot of professionals that have held up a trophy have openly discussed about visualization.
Yeah.
They visualize themselves there before, right? It just makes that heart and mind connection even more vibrant, which means your heart's in it. You're there, you show up, and you're not just showing up going through the motions, but your heart is in it. Like I said, you're actually getting better each day.
Yeah. I'm really excited for Bauman as part of this process to do breathwork sessions together, to do meditation sessions, and actually learn how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you've never done those things, and if you're like me, who grew up thinking that was kind of frou-frou hippie stuff, and then you finally do it in your adult life, and you're like, holy cow, some of this is transformative.
Yeah.
I was listening to a story with Dirk Nowitzki, an old basketball player, and I don't know if you remember this. I think it was the '96 finals or whatever year it was. It could be way off 2006 finals. But yeah, that would make more sense.
They beat a lot of good teams that year.
Not '96.
That
That was Karl Malone. That was my childhood. So yeah, 2000 whatever it was. Dirk Nowitzki was playing against the Heat, and LeBron James and D Wade and Chris Bosh era, and it's the year Dallas won and beat him. But there was this moment where Dirk Nowitzki was sick. And if anybody remembers this, LeBron James and D Wade were walking down a hallway, and they were mocking him, pretending to be sick, like mocking him like he was faking sick, and this is why he wasn't playing as well, or whatever. Well, D Wade and Dirk Nowitzki were on a podcast together recently, and they talked about this. Yeah. And Dirk Nowitzki said some really powerful things where he said, I thought you guys were a little childish, and D Wade was like, yeah, we were totally childish. But he's like, it didn't add any motivation. Because if you need the motivation at that point, like there's something wrong. He said, you were in between me and my dream, and I was 2 games away from the dream I'd always had as a kid to win this NBA championship. And he's like, that was going to be a distraction. If I chose to use that as the motivation, it would be a distraction. Yeah. Instead, I was focused on me. This is what we're talking about, right? I was focused on what I needed to do to achieve my dream, and we weren't going to let you be part of
Yeah,
it. You know,
get away with it, or take a part of it, like you said. Just focus in on what they're doing. Instead, no, you focus on what can I do to win this next game. And they went on to beat Odom and Kobe that year. They went on to beat another really great team. I mean, they beat 3 teams that were absolutely incredibly.
Yeah, the Spurs, I think, the
Yeah.
Lakers, and then finals with the Heat.
Yeah,
you
they
know,
went
the big
through
3
them
at the
all.
Heat, and they won. And and what a cool story, and to add some of those distractions and things. And so, yeah, so men need to be better at weeding out distractions, focusing on themselves, learning the skills and techniques of mindset and health and all that. So I'm going to dig into your childhood because you've shared some things. I don't, how open are you?
I'm open.
Pretty
yeah,
open.
book.
So you talked about losing a father. You've had some significant loss in your life. You've had some significant ups and downs in life. I love that you talked about being raised by sort of or growing up in a home that was a little more uneducated, is that okay to say, and that you've risen above this. So you've talked to me about earning this mindset, working toward that. Can you give us just kind of the general rundown of how you go from, little baby Matt in a situation where probably not much was expected of you, to end up being one of the best trainers in all of Southern California, to now being a fitness director, to now doing all sorts of cool things that you've accomplished, like one of the best high school athletes in your day. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to deal with the people around me. The support system is the biggest thing. And if I didn't have certain people in place, I could definitely have gone the wrong direction. So, don't be afraid to lean on people in life, especially if they want what you have in life. If you see someone that's doing the things, acting the way that you want to act, and has the things you want to have in life, don't be afraid to get around those people and insert yourself into their lives and see what they're doing, and be coachable, be able to learn from them and rewrite your story in a sense. But yeah, so young Matt, just neither parents went to college. My dad went to trade school. He was a carpenter. I mean, I don't want to say that they're not successful people, but yeah, didn't have the education quite there. So I was the first one to go to college, and from my family and my mom and dad's line. So, but anyways, played sports my whole life. School wasn't really a thing. We were always outdoors. We were always doing crazy things. So movement was a big part of my life growing up. And then I got into high school, and track took over. And Coach Bowden, Charles Bowden, he's still a coach over at Central Valley High School. So big shout out to him. He was a huge part of my life. Because he taught me the importance of education and the importance of ignorance versus arrogance. Ignorance is okay, arrogance not so much, right? You can be ignorant, just don't know better. But arrogance, you got to do something about that, right? So he was a big driving factor of where maybe that mindset began, because that kind of started my track career, and like I said, standout high school track athlete. Then in college, was invited to the Baltimore Classic, which was a pre-qualifier for the Beijing Olympics that year. So definitely a huge part of that. But then
what'd you run real quick?
400-meter hurdles.
Okay.
Yeah, 400-meter hurdles. So, and I was a decathlete as well, which really helped as far as becoming an athlete in some of those more endurance races. But yeah, after that, dealt with injuries. So tore my Achilles. You get so far in achieving a goal and success, and then to have it be taken away so quickly, and torn Achilles, not just a couple of weeks recovery, that's full recovery. And a lot of the doctors up here in the Pacific Northwest at the time, not a lot, but the ones I dealt with, weren't very reassuring. You'll never be the same athlete, and I don't really think you'll get to that same level of performance ever again. And I took it to heart, and I believed them. And man, as much as I didn't want to, I went through physical therapy and did everything that I needed to, completely shut down. Athletics, I'm done. I'm never going to be the same athlete ever again. So from there, met Tommy Boyer Kendrick, actually. And man, he changed a lot. It's mindset. It really is mindset. And then Paul Swanson, a buddy of mine, I went down and played Southern California junior college football. And that's where it began, where it was just like, the body will follow the mind wherever it goes. And if you're willing to put in the pressure and make the sacrifices, the body will follow you wherever you go. So I put in the work. I put in a lot of work in the sports performance realm, sports psychology realm, studied, hit the books, went to school, and yeah, really dove into it, was a better athlete afterwards. I had a higher vertical, ran a faster 40, never really jumped on the track again outside of just coaching and practicing, but yeah, it's just now it's all about coaching young athletes to do the same. It all starts up here, and everything else will follow suit. And unfortunately for us, the physical is delayed, right? So,
So TBK, Tommy, and Paul. Paul's like a mindset guy now.
yeah,
That's what he does for a living. TBK is a high-level trainer, trained in the NBA for years. Trained Kobe Penny Hardaway,
yep.
and Shaq, and so he knew. So what was it about what they? I mean, how did they help you change your mindset? How did was it just pouring into you? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just little stories told over time from each coach. I remember in high school learning about the story of Roger Bannister, right, breaking through the limitations of belief up until, I can't remember the year, it was like 1980 something or 1950 something. 4 minute mile was considered to be unbeatable. It was not humanly possible to run under 4 minutes in the mile. And Roger Bannister came along, and one of his biggest things was he wasn't interested in limits, so he wanted to push those limits, and he did, and he ended up breaking the 4 minute mile. But the cool part of that story is not that he did it, but only months later another person did it, and then 2 years later over 48 people had done it. And so it's just that power of belief. So having that story in my head, and then going to see Tommy BK and understanding that movement is geared from up here, right? So if we can hone in our movement skills by not thinking and just moving and letting the body become more of a reflex, you can accomplish anything. And we see that all the time with basketball players. You see some of the most studly athletes ever, gifted athletes, not succeed. And then you've got these athletes that maybe aren't as gifted, but they do succeed.
Yeah.
So it's like, where does that come from, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the power of the mind, the mental mindset. So diving into sports psychology, understanding that we aren't our circumstances, but we can make our circumstances work for us or for us. Yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I try to teach my sons this, and help them understand that mindset and grit and tenacity and all those things go pretty hand in hand in order to sort of find success in sports. There's a recipe that you can follow to find success in most things in life.
Yeah, and trusting that process too. I think we talked about it in a meeting earlier today, is that relationship between failure and success. I think a lot of people are scared to fail because it's like failure is some kind of end point for them.
Yeah.
But we talked about it. Failure is only for the people that stop.
Yeah.
Right. If you stop, then yeah, you failed. But if you fail, the relationship between success and failure is skewed in the sense of, I think failure is much a part of success as success is, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're gonna fail many times along that road to success. For instance, an example for me is tearing my Achilles. That was a failure to me. I failed, right? So what I do, I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But having that mindset or not losing that enthusiasm for the end result, no matter what happens, right? I could have continued to train after that, and who knows? 4 years later, I could have been invited back to the Olympics again.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where you only fail if you stop.
Yep.
Right? If you come to let's call it a hurdle in this case, you go through it.
Yeah.
And continue to go, and that success will come. Like if you can continue to push through those failures, success is going to be a part of that.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny because I think failure is mostly tied to ego, right? And that's why we quit or stop, or we don't want the public to know we failed at this thing or that thing. You see these really popular social media business guys now, like an Alex Hormozy or others, and they brag about their failures now, right? Like, I had 6 failed businesses and now I'm crushing, whatever. Yeah. And so we glorify it once you've broken through the failure ceiling, quote unquote, and but we don't glorify it while it's happening. It's a bizarre sort of philosophy here in America where failure and success are just viewed so
Yeah.
oddly. And so failing forward, learning, failure is learning. We have all those kinds of comments that you hear, those quotes, and I couldn't agree more that failure, in our meeting this morning, we were talking about it, losers are those who actually fail, or those who you would call a loser in that, use that road bump, use that difficulty to demotivate, they abandon ship, an excuse, whatever. Winners, people who end up ahead in life, take that hurdle and figure out how to go over or around it, right? Or I'm changing lanes, but I'm not quitting. I got to figure out this obstacle. I got to figure out this setback, this bottleneck, this road block, whatever it is, and I'm going to use it as motivation to figure out how to be better.
And the cool part is, most of the time, the people that do that and push through it, those failures become part of their success story.
It's their stage moment, right? They talk about the failure, they talk about the setback, and it's part of their story. In fact, we were with someone who sadly we had to let go, and here at our company, and one of the cool things we tried to impress upon them was, like, this is the moment you're going to tell everybody about.
Yeah. Why don't we switch that more? Instead of saying I failed, let's say this is part of my success story.
This is the start of your story that you will literally tell someone. I promise you. If you go out and work hard, it didn't work here, and that's fine. There's places and times for success and leadership and whatever. I'm a perfect example of that throughout my life. But I said to him, if you go out and crush it, which you're totally capable of, this will be the moment that your on stage story.
Yeah.
The day I got fired, and then I went and did this and this, and became super successful. And so I've had moments in my life where the companies or the businesses or the things I worked at didn't value me as much.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And I can now tell that story of when you find the place that does value you, and you get the leadership opportunity, get the opportunity to fulfill your passion or whatever it is, and you're grateful that company before didn't value you because you found a home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like all the girls that broke up with you lead you to your wife.
Yeah,
you're grateful. You're grateful they broke up with you in the end, kind of a thing. So, So how do we switch? How do we get that mindset, Matt? How do we make sure that we're pushing forward through failure instead of viewing it as a setback?
I think, the word is in it. You become more mindful, right? And mindful is just being aware of your thoughts in a non-judgmental way in the moment. So it just becomes more of a, figuring out. Let me backtrack. So this guy, Isaac Lindsay, has a really cool TED Talks about how our brains are wired. And any decision you make, doesn't matter, it can all boil down to two things. You're either trying to get away from pain, or you're trying to seek pleasure.
Yeah. What are you running to, or what are you running from?
So when you start becoming more mindful, you can start actually seeing patterns. So you see patterns start to develop of triggers. Triggers lead to behaviors. Behaviors lead to a reward, which are either pleasure or pain, right? To get you closer to pleasure or bring you farther away from pain. So when you understand that some of these thoughts are just triggers from your external world, you start to begin to see the behaviors that follow. And when those behaviors become more apparent, you all start to understand what the reward system is. Mm-hmm. Right? And so now we can start to shift the reward system from short-term rewards to long-term rewards, and becoming more disciplined and understanding what it is we actually want out of life. Right? So by understanding what's triggering us, what's triggering that thought is going to start to invoke some emotions, which begin to play out in the behavior, and those behaviors are basically to dive into that reward system or please that reward system. So shifting let's say, not getting up at 5 a.m. to do your workout first thing in the morning, right? What is the short-term reward of that triggered behavior?
Beautiful sleep-in.
Yeah,
amazing sleep-in. Yeah.
Right? So
you want to know how terrible I am? Just to interject some real life into this thing. My wife gets up at 5:30, and rummages around getting ready for the day, so I don't even get to actually sleep. should totally get up and work out, and I just lay there in that cushy bed
Yep.
because why not?
Yeah, exactly. So short-term reward, right, would be that nice, comfy, your body. I mean, and again, backtrack even more is our body's number one job is to keep us comfortable. That's
Right.
its job.
Sure.
To keep you at what's called homeostasis,
Uh-huh.
right? So you have to fight that subconsciously because that's what it's meant to do. So consciously, you have to make that initial effort.
Right.
But yeah, and like you said, taking that, okay, this is the short-term reward. I get to sleep in a little bit, or not necessarily like you said, sleep, but you get to be comfortable,
Oh, yeah.
warm, soft bed, good covers. So
Again, are you running toward the comfort, or are you just avoiding the discomfort?
or
There's
you
your
just
pleasure, the fear?
exactly. So now how do we shift that reward center? So what's the reward for our long-term, center? So is it obviously more confidence, better body image, better, I mean, honestly, just feeling better in general, better fitness.
And I think people don't realize, or maybe they've heard this, but until you've lived it, because I've always struggled. Food is my only, I shouldn't say my only addiction. It's probably my only that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's been my greatest struggle as an adult. Super fit as a kid, in through college. Like, I was the dork who like took his shirt off every chance you could get in college, whatever. And whatever hit, metabolism slowed down, adulthood, whatever. And it's been my greatest trial and my greatest struggle. And so I've gone back and forth. I've lost weight and felt great and whatever. And I can totally say that it is the one thing, the one major thing, top of the list at least, that impacts everything in your life. So you get fit, you're a better business person, which you're like, what's the correlation there? And everybody's ever done it knows that that's a reality. The better shape you are, the people treat you differently. Not that you can't be successful, right? There are a lot of out of shape successful people, but generally speaking, even though I need to get in shape myself, better shape, I counsel people all the time. Like, if you want to be better at business, better marriage, what's the one thing I can get in good shape?
Yeah.
Work out, exercise, eat well.
I think it comes down to discipline. I think honestly understanding that
it's a different kind of discipline though, right?
It's so I'm trying to think of how to address all those things. So it's like maybe it's not necessarily discipline, but not training and eating to prove your worth, but training and eating from your self-worth, coming from a place of worth, right? So I've seen some offensive linemen. Yeah. I've seen some offensive linemen that are some big boys.
Yeah.
I mean, you slap them on the belly and it doesn't stop rolling for a while, right?
Yeah.
But they are in phenomenal shape.
Yep.
They have a great diet. So training from a place where we all come in different shapes and sizes, right? We have different backgrounds. I think the one thing that we can control is our effort, right?
Yes.
And our discipline. So, understanding that when we eat for fuel, try not to eat for comfort, right? Eating out of boredom is a real thing. If you're bored, you'll eat, right? And that's that. You're bored, so your brain is in a state of, I don't want to say pain, but it's not in a state of pleasure. So your body's like, okay, where can we get that dopamine hit from? Food is right there in the fridge. Let's grab it real quick.
That milkshake cures it right away,
right?
brother.
Instead of a 3-mile run, which will do the same, release the same amount of dopamine in your brain, give you the same amount of high, but it's so much more work.
Yeah, so much more work.
There's so much more effort. But want to talk about preparation and confidence. If you can take those long-term rewards and do those workouts instead of the quick fix, when you go out to the lake and it's time to go, skiing or tubing or just doing anything athletic with your kids, that confidence shines. Yeah. And those are the moments we do it for.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Grandkids are fast, but we're trying to keep you faster.
Yeah, just even like I told everyone my son beat me for the first time in our lives in one-on-one basketball, and he's now 6'1". He's an inch taller than me and his long arms. But it's I mean, I broke my ankle really bad and last year and blah 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 and all the excuses. But it's like he said to me the other day, he's like, well, I could be you in a race too, like all this
Ooh, I
stuff.
love it.
Yeah, it's a fun father and son competition. And the reality is he can right now. I need it. But yeah, like if I could beat him, man, that confident, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Luckily I could still beat him up, but yeah.
And and I think that's the thing too, is getting, like I said, getting out of that state, to prove your worth, and more to, self-worth.
Yeah.
In a sense, doing it for bringing the focus back on you,
Yeah.
right? And why am I doing it? Well, I'm doing it so I can keep up with my grandkids one day.
Yeah.
I'm doing it so that my kids see the point and purpose of eating healthy for longevity. For energy, for sustained energy throughout the day,
Yeah,
and not having to rely on 3 energy drinks every single day.
Yeah, that lead by example, so your kids can see it. There's definitely self-discipline there, and it is really interesting because I've been around a lot of businessmen that are out of shape, super self-disciplined in the office. They get their work done. They're hard workers. There is a different kind of discipline for that physical.
And it all goes back to, again, self-worth. Is why am I doing it? I'm doing it so that I can show up in other areas of my life the best me possible.
Yeah,
If
and
I'm-
that mindset really helps.
If I'm not filling up my own cup, then how am I supposed to help people fill up their cups?
Yeah.
Right. So.
And there are a lot of things you could do. There's, I wish I had all the books memorized that I've read on mindset and things, but there are.
Yeah, I know plenty of business professionals that are very disciplined in their business, but their biomarkers are struggling. Their cortisol levels are through the roof. They're not healthy individuals, right? So it's doable, but is it sustainable?
Right. That's why I think we work in extremes, a lot of us as well. Especially there are a lot of successful business people who love that adrenaline. They get that dopamine hit from a big deal and things, and I've probably been victim of that. And so we work in extremes. My wife always teases me. She's like, "You're the best person ever at losing 40 pounds." Keeping it off is because I'll do the big fast, I'll do carnivore diet, I'll do whatever, these extremes. Have you ever heard of the I think it's Japanese idea of the misogi?
Mm-mm.
Oh, the misogi is such a cool idea, but this is how I think, and we're gonna implement this in the men's group. There will be a misogi challenge and things like this. But the misogi is Jesse Eitzler. He's a famous businessman, but
is it the 1% better every day thing?
Well, that you
It's the Kensai. I think.
Well, yeah, Kensai I think is the get a little better every day. Just focus on being a little better every day, which I love that one as well. Misogi it's a big challenge. So you're supposed to do 1 or 2 misogis every year, and it's something that will push you to your limits.
It's like 75 hard.
So you could do 75 hard could be your misogi. A lot of people will do like an ultra marathon or a big triathlon, or it doesn't even have to be a competition. It could be like, I'm going to go camp for 12 days and hike up to this big peak and blah blah blah. Like you pick what it is. People will do that. They'll swim a couple miles, or they'll canoe across Lake Michigan, whatever it is. And but the idea behind the tradition is you're not supposed to be able to conquer this. You're not supposed to be able to even accomplish it. It's not about the accomplishment. It's that you're going to try to do something so difficult that the journey in getting you to do that if you only get 3/4 of the way, that you accomplished it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that there's a lot of that in our courses here, and it's the continual pursuit of something great.
Yeah.
And I really like that mentality a lot.
So what's
it called? You called it
misogi.
Misogi.
Yeah. So and there's a bunch of really cool Japanese, health or fitness.
But it should be, and we've talked about it already today. It should be about the journey, not the outcome.
Yeah.
Right. The outcome is so far out there. I mean, the outcome's great. Pin something on the wall to reach for.
Right.
You've got to reach for something.
But the point is, like, if
the journey is going to make you the person.
Yeah.
Not the outcome.
Well, and if your goal is to climb Mount Everest and you spend a year training, and you only get to 3/4 of the way up, like all that physical benefit from that year of training, all that mental benefit from that year of training, were you a failure? That's the idea of the misogi. Is it's okay that you didn't accomplish the thing you set out. It's that journey, that experience, and you should do 1 or 2 of them every year and just push yourself. Yeah, I'm a big believer in adventuring as much as possible, and if you can add the physicality to it, I was with a young man spearfishing last week, and he speared his very first fish.
Nice.
He's a teenage boy. These teenage boys are so tough. It was like cold water, and I was in a wetsuit, and he just jumped in, and,
Ready to go.
And he speared this fish, and man, the joy, you know what I mean? Like, that was so cool, and you get to be part of nature, and there's no better physical feeling than doing something tough like that.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that, we talk about these fad diets and fad, workout programs and things like that, but it really becomes to, are you resonating with the journey? Is the journey making you who you want to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so we're putting that into our gym here at Mode. We're doing more than just a gym. We're going to do fitness festivals and cool workshops and classes and all of that, so that we can help people go find that self-discipline, find that mindset, work on those kinds of things. Because Matt is not just a trainer who says lift this or lift that. He does all sorts of mindfulness trainings and helps you see your biomarkers. In fact, it's kind of an all-encompassing gym aspect, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a wellness hub. I want to make sure that from head to toe, and everything in between is taken care of. And that means, the mindset, visualization. It's funny that, we get taught how to, from a very early age, we're taught how to crawl, we're taught how to walk, we're taught how to run, we're taught how to move, squat, push, pull, carry, hinge, all that good stuff. But whoever taught us how to breathe, right? And there's so many different ways. And Dr. Andrew Huberman's even going farther to say that the diaphragm isn't just a muscle, it is actually an organ that is in consistent communication with your heart and lungs.
Yeah.
So if you can take control of your breath in different rhythmic breathing techniques, you can actually scale yourself left and right on your central nervous system.
Oh, I believe it. I did a breathwork session, and it was at a men's retreat I hosted, and I think there was 15 of us in the room, and I'd say 8 were in tears, and I didn't have that kind of emotional experience, but it felt like I was hearing my own voice clearly. It was a bizarre and really cool experience.
Yeah.
Really neat experience.
Our brain is a chemical factory.
Oh, I was high.
Yeah.
If you do breath work,
Yeah.
You'll feel high for
Wim
sure.
Hof, so-
Wim Hof stuff. Yeah.
And as soon as you link into that, your body will start releasing some of the chemicals. And if you've been a tense, ball of just stress and cortisol for a really long time, you open that floodgate and you open that dam of chemical response. Oh my! Like you said, people can come to tears. It's an experience in its own.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we're gonna do all that, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're gonna do all of it: mindset, breath work, technique, visualization. We're going to have functional strength training, sports performance programs. We've got yoga, Pilates. We've got bar classes. We've got dance classes. We'll have fitness fairs, events. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. And we're so glad you're here with us, Matt. You are a stud. We're excited to see what you're going to do here as the director of our fitness program and all of that. What's the last thing you want to say to everybody before we shut this thing down?
Let's see. For everyone thinking about coming and starting at Mode Fitness, you do not have to be the best to start, but you do have to start if you'd like to be the best.
Ooh, that was great.
Yeah.
I love it. Perfect. Matt Bauman, everybody. Thanks for enjoying the listen. And, we'll talk to you all soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks
for
Bambi.
having me.